Good day, everyone. My name is Charles Marks, and I'm your host on the program State of the Union, brought to you by Taswed Finest, the largest community and the largest media group in Tertiary University of Education. Today with me in the studio, I have the two distinguished gentlemen who happen to be at the pinnacle of the Students' Union body of the university. And without further ado, I would like to introduce them to you. On my right, I have the president of the Students' Union government. His name is Senator Abdulaziz Shuneye, popularly known as LAS by most of his peers. Welcome, Mr. President, to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here with us. And on my left-hand side, we have the Senate President, by name Distinguished Senator
Oluwatosin
Omowi. And he is going to be accompanying the President as we tackle issues that affect the Students' Union and the State of the Union. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back after this.
There can only be one queen.
Welcome back to the program. I still have the Senate President and the President of the Students' Union government with me. It would interest you to note that these two were elected on the 15th of August 2019, and they were sworn in on the 11th of October 2019, which means they've run their course for more than a year as a president and Senate president due to the COVID-19 era. How do you two feel being presidents for more than a year?
Well, personally, let me first appreciate you for bringing this up, or giving us the avenue to address our people wide and large. Kudos to Taswed Finest. Personally, I wouldn't say I'm too comfortable with the fact that we are still here. But you know, the issue is what is beyond human, and then it's everywhere. And hopefully soon we should be able to leave the mantle for the next set of student union leaders to take over from us.
Mr. Senate President.
All right, I appreciate the Taswed Finest for giving us an opportunity like this to at least address most of our members outside there. But as a custodians of the Constitution, it is the Constitution stipulated a session for any regime. That is, a regime must spend a session while in office. So, if it is to go by that, I think we are now beyond a session yet. Just because, even due to the pandemics, that is what elongates the year. Regime is not counting by number of years, rather the sessions that is in. So we are still in the same sessions. We are still in 400 level. We just graduated now quite long.
Okay, that is wonderful to know. But although the president sounded almost like as if he's very, very much willing to drop the mantle as soon as possible. Okay, but let's go straight into business now. During your manifesto, when you were aspiring to become the president, you made mention that you were going to tackle the issue of medical service being rendered to students and making it much more easier for them to access medical service. Would you say that you've done so much to be able to tackle that particular situation very well?
Well, thank you very much. Ours is not to give ourselves the score. The best set of people that can actually give us score on that is actually the student. But personally, I should be able to say one or two things we've been able to do. I could remember very well on the debate day particularly, and the man behind Taswed Finest was one of the anchor. He asked a particular question that can I mention any fundamental issue that I would like to tackle even if I was given the privilege to serve as the student union president at that point in time. And I mentioned categorically the issue of medical service rendered to the students. And I stated emphatically that one of the innovations we are going to bring is that we would ensure that students will not only have access to the school, university medical, only through their medical clinic card, but as well through their university identity card. By introducing the fact that their clinic identity number would be tagged on their university identity card. And to the glory of God, we are able to achieve that within few weeks of our swearing in. We are able to achieve that. So there is no student on campus today who has gotten his or her new ID card and wouldn't find it. So you don't necessarily have to get your medical card before you are attended to at the clinic. And one of the other things we've been able to do is that through the Office of the Welfare Director, we've been able to set up a committee that is always monitoring the activities going on at the University Medical Center, such that if any single drug is being bought today, the student union would be aware of and will take note of such. And oftentimes, and I think there hasn't been any other time that the student would call us to, as regards any medical issue that we wouldn't be on our toes. Apart from this fact, one of the things we were able to say is that, fine, we understood that the university is growing large enough, and then there should be a reason to even enlarge the cost of the medical services. And as you can see a project going on, that is the extension of the university medical center. So those are the few things that I can literally mention here. Okay. At this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Senate President, so you chair the legislative arm of the Student Union government. Some people feel as though the legislative part of the Student Union government is not, is becoming obsolete. It's not really functioning as much or as well as it ought to. Now, what do you say about that? Do you think that the legislative arm is not really doing enough? Or do you have any counter to the fact that truly the legislative arm is working? And if it is working, what are the things that you think or you know that the legislative arm of the government has done so far?
All right. I won't sound like more or less like opposing such a statement. But like we all know, majorly the functions of the legislative arm is to at least make laws at times. But why don't we think about the aspect of the legislative oversight and almost all the achievement of the Central Executive Council, just because we are a team? That is why it is called Assist Student Team. So we see ourselves as a team. Almost all these achievements, most of it, if not all, started from the house. But in that sense, what I can only say is that maybe we've not been seeing much of passage of bills and the likes, but at least we have two bills. That's one is being sponsored by Senator Abdulaziz Abdulmalik, which titled Revitalization of the Medical Clinics. But the issue is, does the environment, does it really give the legislators those opportunities to carry out their functions? So that is why we can not go against such an argument. But the union, that is the legislative arm, have tried almost in all its best to at least show a collaboration with the Central Executive Council. That is when we can achieve the little we've achieved during the times of our office.
Okay, now when you say that there is no much opportunity for the legislature to be able to carry out its functions, what do you mean? Do you mean that there are some hindrances, or do you mean that some parts of the union are not allowing the legislature to grow beyond its present state?
Anyway, we didn't have any harms of the union that is going against the functionings of the legislative arm. To an extent, we have a president that understands the modus of operandi of the legislative arm, which is in line to the reasons why you have a lot of, we didn't have any rancors as regards the regime. But the state of the union, most of the things that we cannot even say in public, those are the things, factors that are contributing to the inefficiency of the legislative arm to carry out what it is meant to do. But that is why our function is limited to many things. The reconducting of e-test sometimes was a motion that is passed from the House, which asks the president at the end of the day to swing into actions. With the office of the president and the Senate president, we were able to make the conduction of e-test happen. So that is what limits us to more of oversighting than the legislative actions of a thing.
Wow. Wonderful. Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Now, even in Nigeria as a whole, we face this same issue, insecurity. Now, throughout your regime, we know exactly how the students' campus life has always been. Now, how much or how well have you been able to tackle security issues in respect to welfare of students, even those living off campus, as well as those who even come into school? How well has your regime been able to tackle the issue of security or insecurity as maybe?
Thank you very much. I would take it from two perspectives, the issue of security in itself, and you slightly mentioned the question of accommodation or refereeism of students.
Yes.
Well, so far so good. I don't think, in fact, I shouldn't be scoring myself now or the union at large. But what I can say is that so far so good since the regime has been inaugurated, I don't think there has been any major attack or insecurity threat to students majorly. Personally, I move with the community vigilante at least 5 days in a week, overnight. So we work hand in hand together such that if there is any slight observation of any security threat, we always move to tackle it. And I don't think, if there is any, of course, you can as well remember, you can as well remind me so that we can actually address it live here. I don't think there is any attack, any major attack that has caused the issue of security or violence. Declaration of state of emergency for instance. So that is to show the interrelationship that has existed, and then to show how well we are taking the security. Because if you are talking about security, you equally talk about health security, you talk about transportation security, and that we have been able to sustain to P-test in the restaurant. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. This question I'm about to ask is going to go to the both of you. Now, we know that for 70 years, there's always been a hero that has always been celebrated every single year in International University. His name is Honorable TJ. Every February 14th, there's always a remembrance for the man because he was also a member of the Students' Union. He gave his life fighting for students and for the Students' Union. Now, in a way, some people feel as though the remembrance of this great comrade is disintegrating, almost as if it is becoming more of a show than an actual remembrance of the good works of this man. Now, I want to ask, what is your regime, what is this union going to do to ensure that even those who come after you will take up this remembrance, not just as a festivity or just as a show, but something to actually celebrate and teach people or encourage people to actually do more as comrades?
Thank you very much. You see, for us, we do not take TJ's remembrance as a period of mourning. We see it as a period to celebrate the legacy, to celebrate a human rights activist who lived his life fighting for the cause of humanity, to celebrate someone whose life and soul was dedicated to the existence of this university. And in so doing, one of the things that we also identified is that year in, year out, students, subsequent generation of students that come into the campus are losing touch with the story of events that actually led to the death of Omutiji, or particularly who Omutiji was or what he represented at all. So when we were to celebrate Omutiji, one of the things we did was that we identified the key personalities that were instrumental to the historical events. We identified them and we ensured that we did an interview session for every person that we consider to be instrumental to that historical event. Talk about the Student Union president, who happens to be the president alumni president of the institution, the speaker of the union, then the dean of student affairs at that period of time, and so many other prominent members of the union who were significant and instrumental to them. So what the purpose of doing that was that we actually want to have a documentation of that event, so that something would not be missing, so that the original story would not be altered. That's directly from the source, from the people who actually partook in that struggle when the former administration wanted to scrap classroom. And so far we've been trying to match the video. Of course, we are also into this thing. We have to take into consideration a lot of things, while we are also considering merging the video together to make it an audiovisual stuff. We are also trying to maybe transliterate it to make it into a written copy, so that at least it will be at the student union secretariat. So that is to show the extent to which we hold on the fashion of Latunji of TG in high esteem. And then beyond that, we've been able to sustain the legacy of going on humanitarian visits. And one of the things is that if you look at the first, because our regime will be the first regime that would celebrate the event twice, because of the circumstances, of course, the first one we made it symbolic, that beyond the matter level. That is to show the significance of that date. And then the kind of orientation that we have been able to pass through that means is that we have been able to sustain the legacy for quite a long time. And then we are looking forward to rounding up with the process of documentation, the videos now, so that before we hand over to the next regime, we'll be able to make it part of the things we'll be handing over to them. Not necessarily because we want to have a regime that would be like, okay, they would tag our regime to be like, but because we are conscious of that historical event. And that's one of the things we have been able to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Senate President, I want to get your own opinion on this question before we go on a quick break. Do you agree with the president? I'm not trying to, because he said already that maybe because this present set of the legislature and the executive are, should I say, best of friends. So it's almost like as if you don't really have, do I say, different opinions. Do you
just find a way of compromising?
Do you agree with him that right now you are doing more than enough to educate people about this man, his legacy, what he represents, and what that day represents for the student union body of this institution?
Well, from that last aspect of your statement, that is what TJ meant to the student union body. I don't know. That should not be a likely statement, just because it should be what TJ is to Taisholari University of Education. The opportunity each and every one of us have to be here is as a result of that event that led to the death of TJ then. May his gentle soul rest in perfect peace. But in that sense, what we've been able to do as a union, that is what the president has rightly highlighted. But the only thing is, as a union, then we strategize, we plan our programs in such a way that it's going to give opportunity to comrades, incoming comrades, that is comrades at lower level, to understand the reasons why they need to celebrate TJ. To most students, even though that is what should be a target of the next regime, they should go and extend these crusades, that I will call it, to the other students, so that they can know that they are here as a result of TJ. If TJ has not been here before, then none of us will have the opportunity to be here. So the only problem we have is that as a union, we are expecting many things. The celebrations of TJ should not be a student union event alone. That is, every session of the school should be celebrating TJ.
just because that is the main reason. It happens to be the only reasons why each and every one of us is here. So the main things we've been able to achieve is that during the two events that we were able to celebrate on TJ, we make it as a point of duty that in it there must be a symposium in which we invite those people that have to be the primary source of the event to give what it looks like. So at the end of the day, the other comrades has been acclimatized to the extent that they need to always celebrate February 14th, and the legacy of Ombutije, which happens to be the one that paved the path that each and every one of us is following, should continue to exist, and they should continue to celebrate it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll go on a quick break right now. When we come back, we'll continue to discuss more about the state of the union. Do not forget to follow us on Instagram, Taswet Finest. We are reaching you live on Instagram. And you can even send us your questions via WhatsApp on 081-713-80437. Students, you can send in your questions for your president and your Senate president.
Did you use our guys first?
For Best Logistics, it's all about getting it right. The right product to the right customer at the right time and at the right cost.
Yes, welcome back. It is still State of the Union on Taswet Finest, and I'm still your host, Charles Marks, and I still have the president of the Student Union Body of Taishonari University of Education with me, Senator Abdulaziz Shoneye, and the Senate President in the building is still with me, distinguished Senator. I think he's the only one with the distinguished in his title. Distinguished Senator Adewumi Oluwatosin. Now, before the break, we talked about TJ and all of the things that he meant to us. And he brought another question to me. You know, so many places all over the world today, people celebrate Women's Day. In some parts of the world today, they are celebrating Women's Day, and so many people are having a blast about it, and women equality and feminist groups and all of that are going up. And there's a question that, as much as we celebrate women, as much as we always try to preach women equality, we find that we don't have as much female comrades or elected officials in the union as we expect. You know, is your regime going to find a way to encourage more women to participate in this fight for the students, or how is it going to be bringing in more women to join it? Because women do have a large number. Ratio, women to men, they have a large number. So what do you think your regime can do to be able to bring in more women to join in this fight?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say I am one of so many people, if there are so many people indeed, that actually believe in gender equality. But be that as it may, you see, whenever we are trying to address the issue of gender equality or women participation in unionism or politics, I think we should always be careful of discriminating even the gender we claim to be agitating for. In that, any special way we recruit the men or the male gender into unionism or politics at large. I don't think there is a special way. So if there would be any way of integrating more females into activism, politics, unionism at large, then it should be the focus of the gender itself to see it as a necessity for them to further progress their emancipation struggle for human respect and dignity in the society at large. Because I believe I would not, in fact, consciously, it's my personal opinion that by telling women that you need to participate more in politics, you need to compete with men, is an indirect way of telling them that they are weak, that they need to build their strength. And I don't want to believe that they are weak or that they are inactive. I just feel maybe they haven't seen reasons to join. Nobody can coerce them under the banner of there must be gender representation, equal representation of gender in unionism. I don't believe in that. What I so much and consciously believe in is that whoever is coming into the union should not come on the basis of gender or for any other reason other than the progressive ideological stance for which the union represents. Because if we are preaching that there should be more females, we are articulating our necessity to bring in more females. What about when this female eventually comes in and the only thing they are concentrating their effort on is how to advance the interest of the female in the society? So it should rather be a focus of let us educate the general public. The ones who are interested, whether male or female, will definitely fall in. I don't believe one gender is weak or one gender is less represented, because as a matter of fact, as far as voting is concerned, we see more women voting at polling units. From my experience, at least at this micro society, student union level, from my experience, you see that the women, the ladies are always the one who votes more. So the fact that they are not standing in for election does not necessarily mean they are not participating, because one of the most vital parts of political participation is voting in an election. So if they represent the largest voting population, that means directly or indirectly they decide who becomes the leaders of the union, and by so doing they indirectly decide what the union would be like, because the personal idiosyncrasy of the leadership of the union is what determines what the union would look like. So I don't, that's just my own idea of female participation in student unionism.
Mr. Senate President, do you agree with him? Is there anything that you've done so far, or anything that is going on currently within the union to ensure that more women come in? Or do you agree with him that it is more about their own personal choice and not about you having to go advertise the union to women per se?
Anyway, from the way he is able to dissect the issues, I don't know, when you are putting it to, I cannot combine unionism with politics, even though the organs, the organograms, even though it resemble each other, but I know unionism has an ideological base in which determine the basicity of any unionism. So when I represented the union on October 1st, 2019, even before we were sworn in, I represented the union at Oyo State House of Assembly by the National Youth Council having their swearing then. So I went there with about 19 senators, of which all those 19 are guys. So the speakers of that particular parliament now asked me, these your guys, they are too much, try to balance it up with ladies, girls, and the likes. And I asked, and I told him then that we have 4 female senators presently in this regime, but their availability cannot be compared with that of guys. You know, ladies are always fragile to an extent. So we cannot really be telling them you need to contest, you need to contest. I didn't see it as a reason, but rather, do we even have enough participation in student unionism? Forget about the female gender, the male inclusive. Do we even have enough participation in student unionism? So the question should not be asking ladies, females, to participate in unionism. It should be having a larger number of students participating actively in student unionism. When you ask most students, even though you are going to still have to find a way of romancing them before they vote for you, after the voting processes. They think their only job is to elect, and the rest is you as their principal officer. You are to continue fighting. So, but they didn't know participation in unionism goes beyond you electing. If you want to participate, then you must answer the calls of the union when those you elected need you in carrying out their major functions. If there is a protest, not long, if at the end of the day, this number of students that are there is not even up to one department out of the almost 27 departments in this school. So that is to tell you, it is not really about the female participation, more or less of active participations of student populace in unionism more than those female aspects.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I have a question here from one of your constituents, and he said accommodation for students is something that needs attention because the price has increased excruciatingly. Now, what will your team do regarding this to ensure that these prices for accommodations don't keep increasing annually?
Well, let me answer your question by coming from the angle which my Senate President actually laid his conclusion on participation in unionism. You see, there is no union without the Congress, and the Congress is the entirety of the members. The members are the total population of the students. So by so doing, there is a limit to what I can do, but there is no limit to what we can do. Why I'm saying this is this. A lot of times we would want to take on landlords, caretakers who are exceedingly extorting students through accommodation charges. And then it's always interesting or unfortunate at the same time that whenever we take up such an action, at the end of the day, you see students who would give more or less like an admonition. For instance, if this hostel have been tagged to be an hostel controlled by someone who does not care about the interest of the student, please stop staying in this hostel. Stop bringing in new set of students. You see the same student telling you that is where they want to stay. Let me just even point a question of recent, after we resumed from the pandemic. There was a particular hostel behind the cemetery there. The caretaker went as far as tagging sham on the doors of the students occupants in that hostel.
Chance.
Yes, and the thing went viral. I didn't know, he didn't know. Only that someone sent the screenshot from Facebook to us that and we call ourselves a union, something like this is going on. So we decided, okay, let us take this up. Where is the location? We went there immediately. Would you believe that when we got there, where is the caretaker? Let us take up this action. For someone to be so wicked to that extent that if there is an issue of if there is a conflict within the caretaker and the tenant, I think there is always a peaceful and legal way to go about it. The students were the one who said they didn't call us, so that they are not, we should not mind. They will pay the caretaker no matter what it takes. They don't want trouble. You see, and that makes you feel like, am I the troublesome person? You understand? I just mentioned the case of a particular landlord that we had to drag from Ijele community down to the student union building for a particular reason over that. You see, when we have the support of the students in doing what we want to do, we can't mention, at least I can mention like 5 or 6 hostels where we declared for students that they are going to stay in a particular hostel for free for a whole session. And they did stay throughout our period. I can mention there's a particular hostel at Maweje. There is one around that sufficient area. What the landlord did was that he came on, they bulldozed the toilet just because none of the students would pay for a session. You see, the student cooperated by giving us optimum follow-up. Whenever the landlord, they notice that the landlord or caretaker is coming around, they give us information so that we prepare ahead. There's another hostel around, I think Ayilara or what's the name of the hostel that we went in. Some of the students, we had to take it up upon them. But at the same time, we have to be careful because these hostels are privately owned. You understand? I cannot build a particular building with my own added money, tag it with the price, even if you will beat it down. It depends on a peaceful negotiation. You understand? And most times when you identify that this hostel, and a lot of times the students, because they are always too eager to just stay somewhere, one caretaker will introduce them to another caretaker. So there will be more or less like 3 or 4 intermediaries. Each of those intermediaries will have their own particular charge. So that makes the payment to be bogus. So a lot of times it is always the question of how are these same students supporting us to achieving this. So before we can talk about beating down the price of this thing, we have to talk about for instance, when we talked about the issue of short soup, when we declared state of emergency, when we noticed that, okay, before we came on board, once it is 7 p.m., you see shuttle drivers taking vehicles, transport for 100 naira, once it is 7 p.m. So we wanted to put a stop to this. One of the things we did was that we declared a lecture-free week, that students should stay back at home. That the essence of that is that there won't be any compulsory reason for students who are staying in town to come to school. Pending the time we'll be able to deal with those shuttle drivers. And because the students gave us that maximum support, we were able to achieve that within 2 days, not even up to the 1 week that we actually stipulated. Within 2 days. So it means most of the times there is no leadership, there is no successful leadership without a base within the followership. So if you are going to achieve anything, then the student needs to always be conscious that whatever we are saying, the stand up, not that I will call them and then although we've been enjoying their massive support, we must be honest, but we still need more of it. We know it's a gradual thing and then we hope we build upon that.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Senate President, there's always the issue of financial capacity for the union to run some of the activities and programs stipulated for the union. And it falls under the jurisdiction of the legislature to ensure that these finances are actually meet the requirements that they are meant for. Now, do you believe that as of now, the union in itself is financially stable to run programs or run on its own concurrently?
Well, the legislative arm would have loved to have, that is one of the reasons that I told you that there is a lot of factors that is going against the functioning of the legislative arm. The legislators, they are ready to carry out a thorough legislative oversight. And during this regime, we didn't have a precedent that we always go against the resolutions of the House. And with that, I don't think we should have issues with financial, that anything that has to do with finance. But the union, the union didn't really have the financial liberty that would have made it to function as effective as the union would have loved to. As a union, if from where the president has been saying participation in student unionism and the likes, if students have known the reasons why they need to have a union, then I would have said we can have an argument in which we can say the union should be granting a financial liberty, but the liberty is not there. So it is hard for you as a legislator to oversight the money that even the Central Executive Council did not have access to. At least if the president needs to get something, he will have to follow the normal procedure any other associations in the school will follows. So with that, there is limitations to how much you can ask or you can question any of the, or rather scrutinize any of the Central Executive Council, just because the Central Executive Council does not even have access to any finance of the student union. The only thing is they follows the normal procedure followed by any other workers of this university.
And these procedures will inquire or require them to prepare budgets for every session or for every semester. Because I have a question here from one of our viewers, and it's like they've not really seen, budgets being given, or should I say major projects that have been taken. So does that mean that your present regime doesn't have any major? Right. You've talked about the fact that there is no financial bogus pockets for the legislature to run. Does that mean therefore that there is no major projects that has been undertaken?
I think I would have to do a follow-up to that effect, because it has been one of the most fundamental questions.
Mr. Ferry, your statements give
Of course, but most of the time, because the Senate President has said a lot, but I think it is more of the Central Executive Council now, because mostly the students would see us as the ones who keep the money, who do this. Now, let me start by saying this, that when we came on board, one of the first things that was thing that was presented to us as a regime was that we should increase our union due. And you would agree with me that the Student Union of Taisho and University of Education is one of the union that pays the lowest or the minimal levy as student union, and that's 500 naira per session. You understand? So, and because of this 500 naira, the student generally believes once we pay our school fees, which is 66,500 naira, at least they say the 500 naira is for the union. What are you people doing with the money? So when they told us that, okay, the 500 naira at the time it was introduced was actually tangible. But at this present moment, if they account everything together, it is not really what it is. One of the questions that we threw back at them was that if you are asking us to ask the student to pay a higher due, more than this 500 naira, the question is, what is the integrity posture to show to them that the 500 naira we've been collecting in the past years, this is what we have been using them for. If we are not able to answer that kind of question, I see no reason we should be asking them to pay more. For instance, probably the last time the student union had a project was during the 2012-2013 regime. That was during the period of Adifeli. I think the last regime that ever did anything was the posture of the statue of Omutiji, and I don't think that is really a project to that effect. Now, one of the things we've been trying to fight is that we want our union to have full control of its finance. And one of the things we did was that we've made it so sure that we want to pass the integrity test of the student first. Because as a union, if the first thing we talk about immediately we are sworn in is we want our union accounts, an average student would think, why is it that it is accounts they are first asking for? Even you as a presenter, the first question you would ask yourself is, why did they make the asking for accounts the first thing they are agitating for? Is it because they want to share the money? So before you even bring about the question of money, you need to have fulfilled some parts of your obligations. And one of the things we did was that we've been accountable enough. For instance, when, in fact, the student union hostel, there is also the student union hostel. Of recent, I think 2 weeks ago, we were able to get the student union hostel card. And then I can say myself and the welfare director are now signatory to the student union hostel account because the student union does have a hostel that is undergoing construction. So it's a gathered thing. Wherever we stop, we believe the subsequent generation, but we are making it. Why I'm not missing word is because as a unionist, the first test of a revolutionary is to be honest. So if the management are having full control over the union accounts, then why should we not say it? So that the students can actually know that we don't earn any money. For instance, I don't get paid on a weekly basis or monthly basis or any basis. I don't get paid. None of the union executive gets paid. You understand? So I think it's one of the fundamental questions that must be cleared, so that students will stop thinking the money it has not. So if we want to, for instance, when we were sworn in, they said they wanted to do a project construction of the union, they said that has not been effected to date. So we now said, for instance, we have a voucher that is undergoing process at the level of the management number. Let's give our union secretariat a face uplift. You understand? If we are able to get that done, we would be able to tell students that, can you see that if you are able to get these things, this is what and what we will be able to do. For instance, I will give you another instance. When our takeoff grant was given, and we said they should give us a location on the campus, that we wanted to build a toilet. One of the questions was that there are more than enough toilets in the campus. So building another toilet will be, but the question is, there are more than the ones inside the union building, including the storage. You notice that we actually brought that up. That question instigated university management to set up a committee, which myself and the welfare director is a member of, that they should see to the renovation of all toilets on campus. Why? Because they saw it that if at this 21st century we are still asking a question of toilets, we want to use our union account to build toilets, and most especially because of our female students. These are things that the union also have envisaged to do, but there is always a priority. You understand? There are times when we have to prioritize the immediate things that can immediately affect our students. We are talking about control of their accounts. We are talking about how the union will spend finances. But does this translate into academic excellence for our students? Does it translate into better welfareism for our students in terms of clinical services, transportation, security, and all of that? So these are the priorities that we looked at, and that is why we have to make it one of the last things. We are still within the discussion at this present moment that we want our student union account. We want to have a full control, and we are saying it without missing words or this thing, because at some point in time you have to be accountable. This is what I said. I think because the last few regimes who did they have control over the account have not been able to really talk about. But we are playing the victim game here. A lot of times the students see us as the bad ones who come in, they just embezzle the union fund at 500 naira and they go with it. So maybe it's that time we started making it a public discourse that no official, no executive, parliamentarian or judicial member collects any due, maybe any wage or salary, whatsoever it is. And we do not take any thing to that effect. So I think I've been able to clear the order. We still have some projects in mind, of course. I'm very sure we would actually effect it and everybody will see it.
Okay. Mr. Senate President, just your take on this issue quickly, if you have anything to add before we quickly go on the break.
All right. The first things in every regime, that is in the legislative army, is to set up committees of the House, in which we have the Budgetaries and Finance Committee. But then it has been the normal things for the subsequent regime to have these budgetary sittings and the likes. If the president did not forget that so soon, there was a time the tacit finance recorded that tacit parliamentary handlers ratified a budget worth 12 million naira. And the question has started coming in. 12 million, where student thinks you have 12 million to execute all those budgets. So in my regimes, when we now get to I asked them, don't let us have anything like budget sitting in which we are going to be discussing, because I believe so much in actualizations of anything that you are budgeting for. So if you are telling us the Central Executive Council, the Senate, the principal officer of the House, we are going to have copies of our project. We will print it at the end of the day. There is nothing that is going to be take on that particular budget. So why are we having it? Everything is down to financial autonomy that we didn't have. So I think in the last regime under distinguished Senator Abiodun, happens to be the budgetary committee general secretary, and when Senator Adebo Olamide, when he came to the House with his budget, everybody applauded him to an extent that we think these are the right budget, a gigantic project to an extent that we think will benefit almost all that students. But the execution, where is it today? It was passed at the level of the House. Is it as a result of mismanagement of funds from the then Central Executive Council? No. Then they didn't have any financial autonomy. So they didn't have access to get the fund to execute all their budget. So in my legislative arm, so why should we pass something that we are very sure it will not stand? So it is not always about passing something, having the budget, having the bills, but all these things, are they going to function very well? Are they going to be of benefit? So that it won't be that we now have the student house of Senate have passed a budget of 10 million naira, and at the end of the day, so some students that knows it, we want to hold us accountable, ask fundamental questions. Do you really do this? Do you really do that? So it will now be like, I'll now, at the end of the regime, I'll now be telling them like, I don't know, but it is on media already. It is well documented. I think if we search through the archives of the TASU finance, you are going to get it that once we ratified 12 million naira as a budget of the student union. So that is the problem.
Anyways, thank you very much. There you have the students. They said that they do not have financial autonomy over the accounts of the student union. That is the reason why most of the projects that they have been trying to get fixed have not been fixed. We're going to be going on a very quick break right now, and when we come back, we'll still be discussing State of the Union in Taishilarin University of Education. Don't go away. Yeah, welcome back, and it's still State of the Union in Taishilarin University of Education. I am still your host, Charles Marks, and I still have with me the President of the Union and the Senate President of the Union, Senators Abdulaziz Shuneye and Senator Oluwatosin Atewu. Yes, and they are still with us in the studio, and we are still discussing State of the Union. We've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about women empowerment within the union. We've talked about welfare of students, concerning accommodation and every other thing, even within this. We've talked about finance, how they've been able to manage taking on projects and why they've not been able to take on projects. We've even talked about so many other things concerning legacies of some of the comrades that have been going on. And right about now, we are going to start discussing the future state of the union. I want to start with you, Mr. Senate President. I want to start with you now. Just a quick comparison. I just wanted to give us a quick comparison. How would you compare the union before you came on board and now that you are in it? I'm not asking you to self-score you that, yes, I'm putting you on a spot where you would actually have to go. I actually want you to compare. But many of us who have known this university know how it has always been in the union. And it's incredible that you both made it clear that maybe one of the reasons why we are not really having so many issues is because of the fact that the legislative arm and the executive arm are so much in peace at this point in time. So, a quick comparison: the union before you and the union presently. What's your take on it? How do you see them?
Anyway,
it is not ours to really compare ourselves with any other person, but every union is our own base. I think in our regime, it is more or less having an ideological basis more than any other things. If you are aware of the unionism of TASWED very well, you will know that there is a lot of ideological homes but that is how much we were able to pull all these hours together, and at the end of the day, that is why we didn't have any rancors. The legislative arms, even though we are trying to carry out our oversight, I don't think there have ever been any business meeting. We are going to be having our 8th business meeting tomorrow, and there has never been one that ends in rancors or we have a fight even within the house, talk less of extending it to the Central Executive Council. So it is down to how much the leadership has been able to balance things ideologically. That is, we have a base rather than having it in the normal way. We have a base, and it as a result of the legislative I inherited from distinguished Senator Franri Abiodun, and that is an ideological legislature. So that is why we've been able to do more of the things. So I can't really compare our regime with any other regime, just because we are unique in our own way. So that is. But the only thing that I've pinpointed is that we've been more of responsive leader than any other regime I can pinpoint. If you are having issues and you're able to get in touch with any officer of the union, I'm very certain we've always been swinging to action immediately we get such notifications. Those are things that set us up. Except if something is happened and we didn't know. There are cases of that. That's what houses almost 25,000 students. So it is hardly not possible for all those 25 to have contact of the president and the senate president. But as much as we get to know of a certain event, we are always going to swing into actions immediately. So that differentiates us, and with subsequent things that will happen before we hand over to the next regime, I think we are going to stand out a little bit to any other regime.
Okay, now, Mr. President, I just want to ask quickly, what do you envisage for the future? Do you have plans for the future? How do you expect the union to run, especially for the union to run independently, to have the capacity financially to carry out its duties, plans for the future before you hand over? Do you have any plans?
Thank you very much. You see, one of the things that we have been remarkable for is that in terms of accountability and then responsibly, I think we've been able to have been progressive in that wise, because I don't think there has been any meeting that the student union leaders, I mean myself, the Senate President, and other executives, would attend without taking along some of the comrades below us. And the essence of doing that is that because we know a lot of times one of the antics of the university management anywhere in the country, whether you talk of Ife, Univen, or anywhere, is that immediately a new regime is sworn in, they tell you when your predecessors were going, we already concluded on this, we already agreed on this. So what we've been able to do is that you always make sure we take on prospective leaders after us to such meetings, so that there wouldn't be any missing historical event. And another thing is, on the issue of independence, to an extent, we've been able to bring about a union that Tasudites can be proud of, that they can always depend on, and when they actually call upon their union leaders, they would actually stand up to respond to issues. So on the issue of the account, we are still not leaving it. We are trying our best possible, exhausting the consultation and the consolidation process of getting the accounts before we consider the last C of Aluta. And then we are always making sure that we carry along respective leaders after us, so that they will be able to continue from where we stop. We can't deny the fact that we also have our shortcomings. We have the part where we didn't do well enough. Of course, no expert is infallible. And that is why we don't even want to score our regime, because if you are talking about, are you talking about the ones we witnessed ourselves in the last 3 years, or you are talking about a particular regime that fought for the survival of this school, or you are talking about a particular regime that saw to the instigation of student union presidents, speakers, and the likes, just in the interest of fighting for students, or you are talking about the student union regime that actually built projects like halls and relaxation centers for students. So you can't, that's why I'm always afraid, because I don't want to offend the gods before us by comparing these things. So what we actually look forward to is that whatever, in all honesty, whatever I consider as my personal failure, I don't know about my executives, honestly, or the parliamentarians. Whatever I consider as my personal failure, I wouldn't be shy, or I wouldn't want to hide things from people who take over from me to, in telling them the honest truth that this is where we have gotten it wrong, and this is where we want you to, this is where we've gotten it better at least, and we want you to. So we hope that the union will be better than how we leave it. We hope that we always go back and be proud that yes, the people are doing better than we did.
Okay, Mr. President, I have a question for you. Now, yes,
Okay.
as you said, during your manifesto for your mandate, you preached about being radical and fighting and confronting oppressions. The question is, what do you mean by being radical? And if you've shown your radical parts, and how much of oppression have you treated? Because in some ways, some people are still being oppressed, not by external forces, but also by their fellow students.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, as I said, the question of the Senate President said something that we can't be everywhere. You only attend to things that you are aware of. For instance, if we are mentioning by radicalism, I mean when the union need to fight, to confront, they shouldn't hesitate. That's my own personal belief and ideology. What I mean, why should you romance an obvious enemy? That this person, his interest conflicts with my interest. So why should I not confront that fact and take it on? For instance, one of the things we did, we talked about declaration of a state of emergency, or even as what the student consider as lead to on transportation system. We were able to get that done. Don't forget that even before our regime came on board, there used to be some particular fees. Because a lot of things, maybe what our regime has not been doing so far is because most of the things that has to do with the radical or the confrontation part of our activities, we always take it slow and don't extend it to social media. We've not been taking it to social media. And the reason is this: while we are protecting the interests of the students, we should also be conscious of the image of the university. Our own kind of junior leaders are not the set of junior leaders that just want to do show off that we did this, we did that. But I'm very sure the student who went on TP with me would tell you that they didn't have to pay 2,500 naira to change TP center. I'm very sure they will tell you that, okay, there was a time that they would call on students and this thing, and then they wouldn't have confidence enough that they have a union that would come to the market. And one of the things is that we have been principled enough, so much that we can boastfully say to our students that these are what we are doing. You understand? Another radical posture that I can't say is that, for instance, the issue of medical fee that is being battled now. You know, one of the things is, it was introduced sometimes in December or January. I don't know, I'm not so sure, but not so long after we were sworn in. And we actually fundamentally rejected it. So one of the tactics now is that it is being reintroduced, but into the new academic session. Our regime covers 2019-2020 session.
Of course.
You understand? So that gives us the limit. And I don't think, as much as I know that our regime would be the first regime that in a particular session, Tasuda wouldn't have to pay a new fee. you may go and look for the past 4-5 years. It will be a session that Tassoda wouldn't have to pay a newly introduced fee. And some of the fees that they used to pay, we had to slash it and look at this one, why should we it? And you see questions of us taking responsibility. So this is not to score ourselves good, like I always say. If some people have not paid the sacrifice, if some people have not actually given us that orientation, the ideological basis, some people who handed over to us, we wouldn't be able to have done so much. And that is what I mean by saying that we would also try as much as possible, tell our shortcomings we can improve upon. So on the issue of radicalism, it's not until we do this. But I know we've been able to stall one or two things. We stall so many things. In fact, if a union can actually declare a lecture-free week, you know what that means. Let's be. So, and this is not something about Shone Abdulaziz alone. It is the union decision. You understand? It means the 3 arms and the entire student populace. They complained that they were not comfortable with this thing. The only solution we saw after consulting, speaking with these people in peace. And then, so that was why I said during my manifesto or campaign that, well, I don't believe there is peace if oppression continues. There can only be peace when there is no oppression. On the other side, student to student, like I said, I don't think, if there is any, you can say it to us, if there has been any major attack on any student. Probably you are missing what you want to mention, cultism and all that. Maybe you are missing what. I'm a very blunt person.
I'm not missing words here. I'm not missing words. I'm giving exactly like probably your constituents are the ones that are even scared of mentioning.
Yes, but for us, we would not. I don't know. You can tell us, and we'll be able to defend it. That's the kind of person we are. At least if I don't know about, I know about my friend here. You understand? So that's to show you that so far so good. We can't abolish everything. Let's be fair enough. It is not, a session is not enough to eradicate all the wrongs. Of course, it's not possible. But the fundamental ones, we just have to start from somewhere so that some subsequent generation can build upon it and do better than we have done. That is my own prayer. And that's why I always tell people when they talk to me that they will miss me, I always pray that may Tassoda never have any reason to miss me when I'm gone. Because missing me means probably someone that is not as good as we have done is there, and then they are missing the golden days when they have a union that would fight for them. So I don't pray they miss me.
Okay, I'm still going to come back to you on your radicalism and the president. Mr. Senate President, the president said something about having to groom people, bringing up people that whenever they are going for meetings, whenever they want to have activities, he wants to take some people along so that they can see what is going on and be able to understand the inner workings of the executive arms. And is there any plan also from the end of the legislature to also groom people that would make up a legislative arm that will be so prominent and so firm in disbursing its activities that it would create a lasting legacy for the students' union?
I think when we are talking of grooming, it's almost belongs to the legislative arm of the union. For the past 3 years or so now, we've been having senators as the student union president, and they are, so that is to tell you how much the legislative arm has been a continuous ways of developing might of comrades in that sense. And if you can take note of it very well, if you are having high numbers of participation in student unionism, it have to be from the legislative arm. The numbers of the senators should be 45. So in that 45, you will see the new intakes as at 100 level now. Most of them are showing interest in contesting at the Student House of Senate, just because when they feel they have an opportunity to watch a session, they will feel like, wow, these people are doing something and the likes. So the legislative arm has always been a breeding grant for intended comrades, even though you are in 100 level and the like. But as regards leadership of the House, the Constitution rightly said is a second-timer senator, that is, before you can hold the principal post in the House, you must have spent 1 parliamentary years. but it has always been almost anybody that is going to hold the post of the Senate President in the year past would have been someone that spent through parliamentary years. So the experience is there, that is, you've witnessed to leadership, and so the experience is always there. It has prepared you for what is ahead of you. So the legislative arm has always been a breeding ground for comrades. Like I rightly told you, the past 3 presidents have come out from the legislative arm.
Wow. That's a great achievement on a legislative arm. Now, coming back to you, Mr. President, just round up on the issue of oppression. Now, you mentioned something about mincing words, probably relating to cultism. And you also said it is not possible to abolish all of these things. But be that as it may, that we've not had major attacks on students, it doesn't take away the fact that they've not been minor incidents. Now, is there any plan on ground to still sensitize people, to let them know that going through these methods, the union frowns on them? Methods that involve endangering lives of students, methods that involves having physical confrontations between 2 rival groups in any setting, in any way on the school campus. Has there been measures taken, or will there be measures that will be taken to ensure that the students are always made aware that no matter what happens, going into such organizations is not the best thing, neither is it the last resort?
Thank you very much. I think for you to be, university evolves from the word universal. So for you to be a university student, at least you must have had a universal idea about some basic things. And then ignorance, they say, is not always an excuse. So we would not go out and start telling people. Of course, there are. If you walk into the exit gate here, you see tags and banner indicating that shun cultism, shun violence, indecent dressing, and all of these things. So that is on the part. And I said I equally want to appreciate the university security department because, to be fair enough, they've been active, they've been up and doing whenever we call, and then they've been trying to take stands that have been able to reduce the number of the activities of these so-called people. When you talk about all these groups themselves, they all have an ideological base, and the ideological base was of radical posture to end oppression in itself. So you cannot address the issue of cultism without addressing its foundational basis. So one of the things that we would always do is to first of all orientate people, tell them the basis, the historical factors that led to the formation of all these groups. You understand? They were in essence to fight oppression on campuses. The agent of the state infiltrated into it, started against 1 or 2 people. Fine, it's something that eventually it would be wiped out. Eventually. Because, as Karl has rightly said, the consciousness, the poverty, the bring about consciousness within the proletariat. And of course, they will understand that whether you are on the blue side, you are on the white side, or you are even on the rainbow side, we all belong to the oppressed class. And then because of that, we should see those who are in the high towers, those who are ruling us, as our oppressors, and they should be the one to be confronted, and not peasants like you and I, because I believe you are also a peasant. If not, you wouldn't be here with us today. So those are the things, and we will always continue to make sure that we sensitize, and that's one of the reasons why the student union always collaborates with the university authority to bring about orientation program whenever new intakes are admitted. There's always an orientation program that is being used to sensitize the new student to that effect. So there couldn't have been any excuse to do the wrong thing.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Just before we leave the studio, this question is coming from me personally. I just want to know, very soon you'll be handing over, there will be an election, you will be leaving the campus. Now, When you do move forward, is there any plans in either of you's minds to come back, check your alma mater, check the organization that you have left behind, and ensure that there is still a smooth run that is going forward? Because like you rightly said, you would not want a situation whereby people will have to miss you when you are gone, because the person that will have taken over from you is not doing a good job. I want to start with you, Mr. Senate President. But the President just finished speaking, so I want to start
all right. You are not a good leader if you didn't really have a good successor. But I don't know, I'm just confident of those people that I think, all those people that I think can be the next Senate President, the next Deputy Senate President, clerks and the likes, that is the leadership of the House. I'm so confident of what they are, but that does not remove the guidance you as a persons that have been in that particular shoe before. So every decision that I made during my regime has been, at least before I do anything, I will have to consult like 3 or 4 past Senate President. What is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? So that is to tell you it is a continuous process. Even as much as the 2 years you spent in the House have given you enough experience to paddle the canoes of the legislative arm, but that does not stop there. You need to consult those that have been in that shoe before, just because while you are in the House, the only thing you know about is giving your reactions on issue that is made known to you. What of the one that the leadership of the House are within it, that they cannot outrightly involve you? So when you now get to that particular podium in which you have the opportunity to directly face such a problem, how do you go about it? That is when you need to consult those people. So I will try as much as possible, whosoever emerges as the next Senate President, always be ready to extend and give explanations where they need an explanation. But the only thing I just want them to know is that I, Adewumi Oluwatosin, did not in any way has any agreement with anybody, whether in written or verbally. I didn't have anything
that anybody will replace you.
Yes, like when you are replacing me, that they will now tell you the last regime has done this, has done that. Not in any way did I have it in written or in verbal forms. So it is more or less, so definitely we can go. Even though we will graduate, serve and the likes, it is union, it is always going to be part of you. Like when the issues of T-ships and the likes come up, when even the younger comrades, when they are trying to do everything. So we have some Senate President that came back to school and started giving us insights of what to do. So that means they did not actually go. So it is the same thing that is going to be applicable to me. I won't leave it like that, so that you have 2 years experience, then you can carry out. But I won't lie to you, whosoever emerges as the next Senate President, I don't know, I'm very confident.
Mr. President, do you have the same confidence that you can just you can even leave the country without even coming back, and you believe that there will be no, but would you still keep in touch with?
Yes, of course. Some people made us. For instance, my mentor, my direct mentor, is one of the past president of this particular union, and that's Oyekomi Abdullahi Plateau. So such that if there would be any decision, fundamental one, critical issue, that I always consult. They've always been available, not only him, like the likes of immediate past Senate President, Family Abiodun Scopa is a very close person to me. Talks about Ekunjobi Property, Sonny Ramon Ubuntu, Ewetola and the likes. So if this set of people have always made sure they make themselves available whenever we need their assistance, not only, in fact, sometimes when we need their presence, they always try their best possible to make themselves available. So why should I not? Personally, I will not be interested in the politics of the people. Personally, I'm not a political person apart from being a leader. I do tell people, because if you are next thing, are you contesting for said I'm not interested in politics myself. I believe I've played my role where I need to play it. I would be not interested in the politics of it. But whenever I think this thing is not going too well with me, I think I should be able to call them that, no, this thing was not like this when we were there. And then I don't think I will be going too far, as a matter of fact, because some of us still have it in ambition to come and do our postgraduate here, and probably even lecture here. Because if there is anything about it. So these are things, but I don't want to be seen as a leader, somebody is always coming to student union secretariat to come and if there is anything, let us communicate. If I have anything I can offer, then I should be able. But one thing I've always ensured I always come back for, and that's the celebration of community. Sure. So anytime, any year, I always ensure that I come back to make myself present at least every February 14th.
Wow, thank you very much, gentlemen. And there you have it, students of Tertiary University of
Education. They said that they would not leave you entirely. They would come back whenever they can, and they always try to reach out to your next leaders. Thank you very much, Mr. President Abdulaziz Shuneye, Senate President Adewumi Oluwatosin of Tertiary University of Education. And we come to a close of today's episode of State of the Union, brought to you by Taswed Finest, and I still remain your host, Charles Marks. And until we come again your way, bye for now.